John Wilkes Booth, a name that will forever be associated with the assassination of America's 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. While many attribute Booth's actions to mental instability, Booth had political motives. The penultimate of 10 children, Booth grew up in a small house in Bel Air, Maryland. His father, Junius Brutus Booth, was an actor but unstable. He abandoned a wife and son for a mistress by the name of Mary Ann Holmes. Due to being an alcoholic, Junius's acting career began to be impacted negatively. Many theater managers would lock Junius in the dressing room to ensure he would be sober for his performances. John Wilkes Booth's brother, Edwin Booth, was also an actor. Edwin was an accomplished performer and became accredited rather quickly, leaving John behind. While John and Edwin were brothers, their relationship was not the best. Their political views were far from different. These political differences, as well as John's incompetence in acting, inhibited the brothers from developing a good relationship. John Booth enjoyed acting and found great pleasure in performing Shakespearean plays. John repeatedly proclaimed his favorite character of Shakespeare was Brutus from Julius Caesar. Brutus, also known as the Slayer of a Tyrant, was one of the conspirators who assisted in the murder of Rome's ruler, Julius Caesar. Favoriting the name of Brutus proved to be a foreshadowing of events in John's life. During the Civil War, Booth was strictly Confederate. In 1859, John started to show his support for the South by assisting in the hanging of John Brown, a radical abolitionist. Seeking to further help the Southern cause, John began devising a plan to kidnap Abraham Lincoln in exchange for Confederate soldiers who were held hostage. John saw Lincoln as a tyrant, with his presidential rule a threat to American freedom. While John originally planned to only hold Lincoln as a hostage, two events caused John to change his plans. First, Abraham Lincoln was re-elected as President of the United States. Second, the South's General Robert E. Lee surrendered, causing the end of the Civil War. Following these two events, John became increasingly unstable and began solidifying a plan to rid the country of the Lincoln tyrant. With plans nearly complete, John, along with his conspiring accomplices, attended Lincoln's second inaugural address. Weeks later, John entered the Ford Theater around 6 p.m., just before the comedy performance of Our American Cousin. He quickly left after tampering with the presidential box so the door would be jammed. John returned to the theater during the third act and found Lincoln's booth unguarded. In his own words, John describes the following events in his journal.
A colonel was at his side. I shouted "Sic Semper" before I fired, and jumping broke my leg. I passed all his pickets, rode 60 miles that night with the bone of my leg tearing the flesh at every jump. I can never repent it. Thought we hated to kill. Our country owed all her trouble to him, and God simply made me the instrument of his punishment.
The 16th President of the United States was dead the following morning. John was immediately hunted down with a $100,000 reward for his and his accomplices' capture.
After being hunted like a dog through swamps, woods, and last night being chased by gunboats till I was forced to return wet, cold, and starving with every man's hand against me, I am here in despair. And why? For doing what Brutus was honored for. I hoped for no gains. I knew no private wrong. I struck for my country and that alone. A country groaned beneath this tyranny and prayed for this end, and yet now behold the cold hand they extend to me. God cannot pardon me if I have done wrong. Yet I cannot see any wrong except in serving a degenerate people.
Following a fired shot at a farmhouse, John was carried to the porch where he subsequently died. In the end, John expressed his remorse and desire for forgiveness for what he had done.